Well, hi everybody. This is Steve Himmelweck. I am your instructor for PHI 150 WB Fall 2020 semester. This video really serves to just welcome you to the course, give you a very brief overview of it and of me, and set us up for next week where we begin for real and sort of set you up for that. And next week you'll receive at least one video that more specifically go over the syllabus, probably another one that will also go through the course site to make sure everybody's clear with it. If you're taking other classes that were initially supposed to be in person but are now remote, this will look similar, but what will be a little different is that since it was always a web course, there's one or two features that might not be there, but for the most part it should look pretty similar. One thing that will be different is where, since it's a web course, it's intended to be non-synchronic, which means that you're not expected to make it to live sessions at all. It's not expected for the instructor either. So I don't have any planned. However, I am certainly open to having those for review for exams or just basically a live session for the class. If the class would like, we could set one up so we could talk about that moving forward. Okay, so as for me, this is my 13th year, I believe, at FM. I teach philosophy, obviously. I also teach ethics, philosophical ethics, and also philosophy of the arts, sometimes called aesthetics. I also teach humanities courses, Introduction to Humanities this semester, and also Survey of Popular Music in the United States or in America, which will be offered next semester, and I teach English courses, and that's what my PhD is actually in, is English, American literature, particularly literary theory. Anyway, if you want to learn more about me, you can go to the My Instructor page, and on the My Instructor page, you'll see a little bio, an awful picture of me. Not that this video that you have of me right here is any better. Should probably stand a little straighter, sitting on my couch, and you can find out a little bit my creds and all that sort of stuff. As for this course, it's a historical survey of Western philosophy. So when I say Western philosophy, I mean, looking at it beginnings in what we think of today as ancient Greece, moving up to somewhat of the present day. Really, the present day will be much more of an overview than will be the more specific sort of look that we'll take as we go through the years. But Western meaning that it's not going to look, for example, at Eastern philosophy of, let's say, Asia, or at least most of Asia, maybe what was called the Orient sometimes of Africa, and the like. A very interesting and important philosophy, but there's only so much we can do. And I think the historical approach is important, so you can see connections between what came and where we are and then where we go. And in many ways, the course is set up to foster that sort of connectivity. It's broken into 4 modules. Well, the first module is actually just a getting started module. We'll talk about that in a second. There's no points involved there. It's just where we get to know each other and just get a sense of what philosophy is. And then 4 concept modules. One about what's called ancient Western philosophy, moving from what are called the pre-Socratics, really ancient Greeks, up through what's called the Hellenistic period. Then there'll be the medieval period. And then the last 2 modules are a little bit longer, so they have one extra week to them. What's called modern philosophy, which might be a little confusing to some people. By modern, meaning, well, modern when the philosophy came out, but it's really the philosophy that starts somewhere in the area of, let's say, the 16th century, moving on through the 18th century. And so it's called modern because was modern to time, and that's where the word modern sort of is used as we use it today. And the last segment of the semester is what's called late or postmodern philosophy. Post meaning after, late meaning the late portions of it. We'll look at the 19th century and really get a very brief overview of what's going on over the past century, give or take. So I'll talk more about assignments and things, but there's an exam for each module other than getting started. There are discussions, weekly discussions, where you'll be asked to answer a prompt or deal with a prompt and by a certain date, and then a couple days later look at other people's responses, maybe 2 or 3 other people reply to what they had done, and then go back and either reply back to people who replied to you, or sort of maybe reflect on what you had done. There'll also be some what are called primary source reading questions. I believe there'll be 4, 5, about 8 of those during the semester, where you'll answer 2, maybe at most 3 questions about a primary source, so like a philosopher like Descartes or Plato or Aquinas, to make sure that you're on the right track, and I can see where you guys are at, make sure you're reading, and if there are any sort of there's confusion or complications going on, I can deal with them, and we can address them. So that's a bit about the course. Just you're watching this video in the Start Here area, and I highly recommend you do, if you have in your other courses, go through it, look at the Blackboard navigation video. Obviously, you need to know how to use Blackboard if you're going to take this course, or just about any course this semester, because everything's remote. There's a bit about strategies for successful studying online, discussion etiquette, right, which will be important, since we'll be doing discussions, making sure that we know what's a proper way to respond to people, wording, sort of expectations, what should we expect, what shouldn't we, those sorts of things. How to avoid plagiarism, which will be very important. In this, there's a lot of stuff out there about these very famous philosophers that you read in philosophies and philosophical concepts, but you have to do things in your own words, and that's something that I'll stress all semester long. So that's important to look at. A really useful bit of information linked to Request Office 365, which gets to the entire Microsoft suite. In other words, Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, OneNote, Publisher, among other things. It usually costs a few $100s, but you get it for free. Well, really, your tuition kind of pays for it. But definitely get it. You might use Google Docs. In this class, you won't really need this sort of thing, to be honest with you. But for other classes, Google Docs is great, and there's other good cloud-based programs. But what's great about Microsoft Work is Microsoft products and productivity products is that they're so dynamic. So definitely get them, and your license is good for 3 or 4 years, so you can use them even after you're done with this course, or even done with FM. If you're going to be done this year or next, you can use it for a period afterward. And then there's a folder with a bunch of information and links about technical information to help relate to Blackboard. So definitely take a look at that stuff. Most importantly, for us in this class specifically moving forward, is to read the syllabus. You're going to see it's detailed. My syllabi are always detailed. Why? Well, I want you to know exactly what the expectations are, what the criteria are, what the procedures are. Secondly, in more so in other classes than this one, but because there is no face-to-face, kind of need to spell things out more. So in a web course, the idea is that the expectation is that you already have a sense of that. But the other reason is that the syllabus is a contract between you and me and FM and SUNY, the larger institution called State University of New York. So we want to make sure we know what we're getting into. We agree to those procedures, criteria, and expectations, and there's no bad surprises moving forward. So please read through it carefully. Once you've done it once, you'll have done it. And obviously there'll be parts of it you can skim over because all the syllabi, I have them all in there, but this stuff specific to this course. During the course of the semester, there'll be videos every week going over content. There could be weeks where there's another video that might offer some sort of review for exam, or some other sort of information you should know about, maybe how to access for the first time an exam, among other things. Certainly next week about how to get to discussions and primary source videos, primary source questions, I should say. So that'll be something to look for, and I'll make announcements when they come out. And I'll make regular announcements to make sure everybody knows where we are. I did afford in this class the opportunity, as all my other classes, for virtual office hours. Those are office hours where I'm actually by the computer and we can actually talk face-to-face like this. They're on, and there's links in all the module folders. So the course is organized by those modules I mentioned. There's the Getting Started, and then there's the 4 module folders that really, 4 modules that structure the course, which is folders. And in those folders are weekly folders, like you'll see in remote course if you have them. So I did structure it to keep it similar to that. And each of those you'll see a link to the virtual office hour, which is on Thursday 12:30 to 1:30, and Friday from 12 to 1. Certainly, you can always contact me by way of the course institution message, uh, uh, institutional message, course message link. Send email. You can email me by my way of my email address. But I hope that you know, you'll take the time to you know, come to an office hour if you need to. And related to that, you'll also see a link that basically says request assistance. And this is where, you know, if you do have a question about the course, about an assignment, about a procedure or due date, it'd be really good if you're not able, you know, if you can do it through a through that form. It's not graded. And it's a place where I, or anyone else can answer a question or ask a question or maybe further a question along. Uh, and what's good about that is that it might be a question that somebody had not thought of, that if you think of and you write it down there and I answer it or somebody else does, it could be very helpful for him or her. Or maybe a question that somebody was a little bit reticent to ask, whereas, you know, maybe somebody else is braver to do so. So I hope that you'll, if you do have a question that's not of a very personal or specific nature that you don't really want to get into with the class, that you'll ask it there so everybody can see it, because that would be helpful for everybody else. So, lastly, for moving forward, for next week, you'll see there's it's not a discussion. You're basically going to answer 6 questions about you and sort of what you know about philosophy or interest or how it relates to your major. You don't need to reply back to anybody. You certainly can, but that'll won't be due though until the 9th. But you know, you can do it as early as you wish. And there's 2 brief readings. One sort of overview what philosophy is all about, another one talking about what makes philosophy important. There are links oftentimes in these readings that you can look at. And the last thing, another thing I wanted to mention quickly is also the course textbook is embedded in the course. It's free. It's an open educational resource I put together with OpenSUNY or Lumen. So you don't need to buy anything. And just about all material should be in there. If not, it'll be in a weekly or content folder. You know, obviously exams, discussion boards, primary source reading questions are in folders. But if there's anything else that's not going to be in there, I will certainly let everybody know, and it'll be placed in a weekly folder or larger content folder. So do take a look at that first reading, just basic informational, and the first discussion. And I think I'll leave it at that since I've rambled on a little bit longer than I want to already. If you ever have any questions, concerns, please don't hesitate to let me know. And I really look forward to engaging with you this semester and do our historical survey through some of the great Western philosophy ever written.